Hey, good afternoon, scholars. Welcome to your Monday. Welcome back from your weekend. I hope it was a good one. Um, let's get into our first lesson of the week. First, we'll do what we always do. We're going to look at our turn-in rate numbers. There was no change from your turn-in rate from Thursday's assignment to Friday's assignment. That's a good thing because the trend up until this point was our turn-in rate dips throughout the weekend. So I'm glad that there's no change. Um, in um, While Miss McKinney was had the day off on Friday, I had the chance to uh, grade all of your work for the first time because normally my focus is on making the lessons and then doing the videos. Miss McKinney's more the feedback head. So it was really interesting grading your assignments. A lot of you are continuing to impress me. Um, some of you have become much clearly better writers over the past month in this format. Some writers that pop into my head right off the bat are Lizbeth, Monica, Catherine, Diana, Molly, Serenity, and fellas. I hate to be well. It's unfortunate that I'm naming all girls, but our the seventh grade girls have been really stepping up in these times and in this format, and there's been a extremely disappointing drop off in the effort from the gentlemen, and I really hope that um, changes today and throughout the week. Some people I want to shout out for their work over the weekend. People that made my grit list are Aldair, Amir, Angel H, Caleb, Catherine, Diana, Amani, Elizabeth, Monica, and Serenity. Your work that you turned in, all of these students got B's, A's, or B's on Friday's assignment, and they did a good job fully explaining themselves. It's clear that they're watching the video and or reading and rereading the pages themselves, and you just showed really good effort. Grit again is that that discipline and that focus to day in and day out knock out what you know you need to knock out, get done what you know you need to get done, even if you don't always feel like doing it, or if there's distractions. People that show grit just get things done and are really successful over the long haul because of that discipline and that focus day in and day out that they show, regardless of always feeling motivated and always feeling excited. If you've got grit, you still just take care of business, and that's a awesome trait to have, especially as a seventh grader. All right, let's check our work. So take a second to bring down my window and bring up your work. I really mean this. Pull up your answers so that you can compare them to the ones that we're going to go over. Because the first thing you're going to notice as I with my exemplars is just how much more writing there are on assignments that get A's and B's and assignments that don't. None of the questions that I give you ever can be answered in one sentence. And that'll be part of the focus that I'll make explicit later. So let's just take a glance at Diana Falcone's work. Some people, if you see this and you think, oh, that's just extra, that's above and beyond, it's not. This is just good work. And good work isn't it shouldn't be, it's not rare, it's not super special. It just shows that Diana is focused on fully explaining um, what she knows she needs to explain in order to answer these questions well. And as a result, she got a really good grade on this assignment. So just comparing, if you look at your answer compares to Diana and you find that Diana's answer has 3 or 4 or 5 more lines than yours does, well, now that's actually good. You know exactly what you need to do moving forward in order to step it up. Write more. Fully explain your thinking. Another push that we've been doing is embedding evidence. Pulling out a word or a little phrase straight from the book and just mixing it right in there with our own writing in a way that's smooth. It gives your writing a lot more authority and clarity whenever you can mix your words with the author's, because it shows you're on the same page because of how well you're comprehending what's going on. So let's take a look at what Diana actually said in her answers. What is the state of the team as they arrive in Skagway? The team is depleted of energy and are so exhausted that they don't have the strength as they arrive to Skagway. London says that the dogs were, quote, on their last legs, saying they were incredibly tired, they couldn't even walk, giving their last pull because they couldn't anymore. Quote, one bully long rest shows that London was trying to represent the men's tiredness. Yeah. And the rest is going to be able, and the rest is going to be long and to be able to actually have a good rest, and how the men need that sleep really badly. Yes, they were dead tired as they get. This was again the male team that Buck and his team are no longer part of. Um, but yeah, they were exhausted as they got into town. Why don't the dogs and the men get the rest that they deserve after the hard journey? Diana said the men and dogs don't rest because the men see that there's lots of mail to deal with, and the dogs are being sold to new owners that expect them to work. This is a great answer, Diana. After the trip, they had barely gotten rest, and it will take a while to recover from their tiredness, not even a couple days, because they had traveled for hundreds of miles. London was using a metaphor that the, quote, congested mail was taking on alpine proportions, meaning that the mail was stacked up like a mountain, which meant more work for the men. The men were tired that they, quote, expected a long layover. They wanted rest, but had more work to deal with. Dead on. Exactly. Good job embedding those two quotes. Diana, your grade is actually higher. Me and in looking back over this with Miss McKinney, we changed it to a 3.5. All right. So now we're going to get into how does London characterize Buck's new owners and how Charles and Mercedes. Okay. Dinah says London characterizes Buck's new owners as unorganized and they are indecisive. But Mercedes is more caring towards the dogs, while Hal is more strict and demanding towards them, and Charles is strong and manly. All right. We'll just look at Diana's assertion. That's a good assertion. I don't know if Charles is manly and strong. I don't think anyone in this party is strong, which you'll go on to see. But I think Diana picked up on what London was really trying to show us is how unorganized they are and indecisive. These people don't know what they're doing. Um, they can't seem to make up their minds about how to pack things up. Everything's a mess, and it's going to cause problems that huge problems that we'll see. Let's look at Monica's answer to this one. Again, just glance at your writing and then compare it to Monica's, and you'll probably see that she is really, really diving into this and flexing those and developing those writing muscles. That's why her writing's gotten so much better these past couple of weeks, is because she really watches these videos and looks for the feedback, and then she works really hard to apply it. And every single day, when Monica works hard to pay attention and then practice the writing skills, and then she gets really good feedback from Miss McKinney as her coach, and then she goes, and it's this loop that just gets you better and stronger if you keep following it, right? That's grit. All right, here's how Monica responded to this one. London characterizes Buck's new owners as cruel and weak now she even says how he does it, by using dialogue between the characters and strong description. Buck's new owners are Hal and Charles. They don't have much experience or business-like method with sled dogs, so they don't really know what to do. On page 46, it describes Charles as weak and tired and tried to look tough, but his eyes were giving his weakness away. It also describes Hal. He has a belt that was the most important thing about him. It shows that he is immature and awful. They have their place all not taken care of and dirty. When they were about to take the dogs to sled, they didn't know how to put all the things in the back so they can ride the dogs, and it was a, quote, mountainous load. Buck and his team tried to pull the sled, but they couldn't. Hal got mad and said, quote, "The lazy brutes, I'll show them." Hal says, quote, "They're lazy, I tell you, and you've got to whip them to get anything out of them. That's their way." This shows that they are cruel to the dogs and don't know that they have been through a lot. London uses dialogue to show us how they feel and think about Buck and his team. They think they are lazy and you need to hit them to get the best from them. On page 48 it says, quote, "The sled held as though it were an anchor. After two efforts they stood still, panting. The whip was whistling savagely." This depicts that Hal and Charles don't know anything about sled dogs, and they are whipping them even though they don't know the sled is too overfilled and the dogs are very tired. They are being brutal. London shows us this by using descriptions like quote like whistling savagery, which shows that Hal and Charles don't understand the dogs and are being rude. Awesome. Great job. Great job. You in your assertion, Monica, you used those keywords you wanted to prove. Cruel and weak. Really good job looping back to those keywords in your analysis and your evidence with really bringing it home what makes them weak and then really revisiting and bringing home what makes them cruel. So you had a good job keeping it in mind the whole time what you were trying to prove. Let's get into today's lesson. Your feedback and focus for today's lesson is embed at least two pieces of evidence per answer. Questions cannot be answered in just one sentence. Okay. So it's kind of a two-parter for today. We're gonna keep working on embedding at least two pieces of evidence per answer, and questions cannot be answered in one sentence. I don't hit you with a full ASAC question today because I really want you to focus on just um, closely reading the text so that you know what's going on and proving that you know what's going on by throwing in those embedded evidence as you just answer these questions um, about what you can tell about these characters and you know especially these new owners. Today we're really going to focus in on these on Hal Charles, but especially Mercedes. We're really going to focus in on her today. Look at her actions and her reactions to the situation and what this shows about her. Okay, I'm going to start off with you, and the first we are on page 49. If you're in the PDF, if you've got the actual physical book, go to page 37. Here we go. Where we last left off, the team hasn't even left town yet because they don't know how to pack a sled. And when they finally did get the sled moving, because it was so top heavy, everything fell over. And because Buck and the other dogs were so upset about how they'd been being treated, getting beaten and whipped for no reason, they just kept on running, spilling out all their contents like all over the streets um, as kind of like punishment for the way they've been treated. So now we're picking right up at that part where after the sled had fallen over and their stuff had fallen everywhere. We are looking to answer the question, what is Mercedes' reaction to the need to reduce their load? What does this show about her? Kind-hearted citizens caught the dogs and gathered up the scattered belongings. Also, they gave advice. Half the load and twice the dogs, if they ever expected to reach Dawson, was what was said. Hal and his sister and brother-in-law listened unwillingly, pitched tent, and overhauled the outfit. Canned goods were turned out that made men laugh, for canned goods on the long trail is a thing to dream about because they're so heavy. Blankets for a hotel, quoth, quoth one of the men who laughed and helped. Half as many is too much. Get rid of them. Throw away that tent and all those dishes. Who's going to wash them anyway? Good Lord, do you think you're traveling on a Pullman? I think a Pullman is a train car. Yeah, it's a train car because like guys, these are dogs. You're not on a train here. You can't fit all this stuff. And so it went, with inexorable elimination of the superfluous. Superfluous is just stuff that's not necessary. And so it went, with the inexorable elimination of the superfluous. Mercedes cried when her clothes bags were dumped on the ground and article after article was thrown out. She cried in general, and she cried in particular over each discarded thing. She clasped hands about knees, rocking back and forth broken-heartedly. She averred that she would not go an inch, not for a dozen Charleses. She appealed to everybody and to everything, finally wiping her eyes and proceeding to cast out even articles of apparel that were imperative necessaries. In her zeal, when she had finished with her own, she attacked the belongings of her men and went through them like a tornado. You can pause there. You have enough information to go and answer this question. How did Mercedes react? What was her reaction to the need to reduce the load? And then what does this show about her? All right. So pause me, answer that question. It's kind of a two-parter, and make sure you embed at least two pieces of evidence in your explanation. All right. If you should have paused me, typed out your response, and let's go to number two. We're looking for, what do Charles, Hal, and Mercedes not account for when they increase their team size to 14 dogs? Again, what does this show about them? So what did they not account for? What did they not think about or plan for when they increased their team size to 14 dogs? This accomplished, the outfit, though cut in half, was still a formidable bulk. Charles and Hal went out in the evening and bought 6 outside dogs. They're going to keep using this term outside dogs, scholars. That doesn't just mean dogs that live outside, it means dogs that from outside the team. They're like new dogs that weren't part of the team before. These added to the 6 of the original team and Teak and Kuna. The Huskies obtained at the Rink Rapids on the record trip brought the team up to 14. But the outside dogs, though practically broken in since their landing, did not amount to much. 3 were short-haired pointers, 1 was a Newfoundland, and the other 2 were mongrels of an indeterminate breed. They did not seem to know anything, these newcomers. Buck and his comrades looked upon them with disgust, and though he speedily taught them their places and what not to do, he could not teach them what to do. They did not take kindly to trace and trail. With the exception of the 2 mongrels, they were bewildered and spirit broken by the strange, savage environment in which they found themselves and by the ill treatment they had received. The 2 mongrels were without spirit at all. Bones were the only things breakable about them. With the newcomers hopeless and forlorn, the old team, worn out by 2,500 miles of continuous trail, the outlook was anything but bright. The 2 men, however, were quite cheerful, and they were proud, too. They were doing the thing in style, with 14 dogs. They had seen other sleds depart over the pass for Dawson, or come in from Dawson, but never had they seen a sled with so many as 14 dogs. In the nature of Arctic travel, there was a reason why 14 dogs should not drag one sled, and that was that one sled could not carry the food for 14 dogs. But Charles and Hal did not know this. They had worked the trip out with a pencil. So much to a dog, so many dogs, so many days, QED. I'm not sure what that means, guys. Mercedes looked over their shoulders and nodded comprehensively. It was all so very simple. You can answer the second question now. What did um, Hal and Charles not account for when they upped their team size to 14 dogs? What does this show about them? All right. Pause me. Find the words that you want to embed in your own response and tell me, what did they not account for? And now make your inference. What does this show about them that they didn't account for this? Again, like, judge them, right? What does this show about them as people? Pause me, answer that question, and I'm actually gonna leave you from there to knock out the rest as you go. You've got two more questions, one more 3-pointer and one more 2-pointer. The 2-pointers just it's easier to answer. Your answer might be a little bit shorter for a 2-pointer, but never just one sentence. Okay. I really want you to focus on the coming pages of why does Mercedes feed the dogs extra? And what does this show about her? Notice I said, don't be tricked by this question. Okay? Don't be tricked. It's really easy to be like, oh, she's nice. It's not that simple. Okay? Um, your stopping point, I'm leaving you on page 50. Your stopping point, if you're doing the PDF, is just on page 52. So you only have about a page and a half left to read. All right. Can't wait to see your responses. Can't wait to see my guys step up their effort and really prove what they're capable of. Because you guys, you do it at school, like when we're in person. I know that you can do it at home. Um, so prove me right. All right. I believe in you guys. I will see you tomorrow.